What if I told you that a simple IOU, a promise to pay someone back, can sometimes be just as good as actual cash? It sounds a little nuts, right? But this idea, it's one of the absolute cornerstones of our entire financial system. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how and why certain types of debt can become perfect clones of money.
All right, let's get into it. Here's our roadmap. First, we'll see how a simple promise turns into something you can actually buy and sell. Then we're going to figure out why that promise is almost never worth its full face value today. After that, we dive into the really weird world where just holding on to cash costs you money. And finally, we'll put it all together and reveal the secret ingredients to create the perfect money clone. So everything, and I mean everything we're talking about today, starts with this one simple idea. A promise isn't just a promise. It's something you can sell. Now, the fancy term for this is a negotiable credit, but all that means is that an IOU isn't stuck between the two people who made the deal. If I owe you money, you can take my promise and sell it to someone else. And now I owe them the money. It's a sellable IOU. And you've definitely seen these before, even if you didn't think of them this way. Government bonds, corporate bonds, they're all just standardized, easy-to-trade versions of a promise from a government or a company to pay you back down the road. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. A promise to get paid $100 in a year is almost never worth $100 today. It's usually worth less. And sometimes, believe it or not, it's worth more. Let's figure out why. This really boils down to two key scenarios. The normal state of affairs is what we call contango. That's when a promise to get paid in the future is worth less today, so you buy it at a discount. The opposite, which is way more rare and kind of weird, is backwardation. That's when the promise is so valuable, it actually trades at a premium. So why on earth would a guaranteed $100 later be worth less than that right now? The answer is kind of hidden. It's all about the invisible benefits you get from just holding on to cold, hard cash. You see, holding cash isn't doing nothing. It gives you what we call an implicit return. There's a liquidity premium. That's the value of having cash ready to jump on any opportunity. There's a temporal premium, the value of being able to spend now instead of later. And there's a risk premium, the value of not locking your money into an investment that could go south. So in this example, just by holding cash, you're earning a 6% return in pure flexibility and safety. So think about it. For you to give up that sweet 6% implicit return from your cash and buy a bond instead, that bond has to offer you at least the same deal. If the bond isn't paying you any interest, the only way it can give you a 6% return is if its price goes up by 6% by the time it matures. And here's what that looks like in the real world. For a bond that pays out $100 in 1 year to give you that 6% return, its price today has to be around $94.33. You buy it cheap, it matures at its full value, and that difference is your profit. That's contango in a nutshell. Okay, so that's the normal world. But now, let's buckle up because we're going to flip this whole thing on its head. What happens when holding cash isn't a benefit, but a problem? Imagine you're a huge company, right? You can't just stuff $1 billion under a mattress. You have massive costs for storage, security, insurance. In that situation, those costs can actually outweigh the benefits of having cash on hand. Suddenly, holding cash has a negative implicit return. Here, you're basically paying the 2% fee every year just to hold it. So now, for a super safe alternative like a treasury bill to compete, it has to be just as, well, unattractive. It also needs to give you a negative 2% return. And the only way for that to happen is if its price actually goes down over time. And that leads to this totally bizarre number. You would actually pay more than $100 today for a T-bill that's only going to pay you $100 in a few months. You're paying a premium, over $102 in this case, because even though you know you're going to lose a little money on the T-bill, you'd lose even more just trying to hold on to the physical cash. And that, my friends, is the logic behind negative interest rates. So we've seen why a promise can be worth less than cash, and we've even seen why it might be worth more. So let's get to the holy grail. How do you create a promise that's worth exactly the same as cash? This is where we get money substitutes. These are promises to pay that are so unbelievably reliable and so easy to access that the market just treats them like their money. They trade right at or like a hair's breadth away from their actual face value all the time. So how do they pull off this magic trick? Well, it all comes down to two secret ingredients that make a promise to pay just as good as having the cash in your hand. Let's look at number one.
First, the promise has to be super, super short term. The less time there is until you get paid, the less time there is for things to go wrong. And ideally, it's payable on demand, which means you can get your money back instantly, whenever you want. No waiting.
And now for the second ingredient. And you absolutely cannot skip this one.
It has to feel absolutely 100% secure. You have to believe deep in your bones that you are going to get paid back. If there's even a tiny microscopic shred of doubt that the promise might be broken, the whole illusion falls apart. The perceived risk has to be zero. So why is that combination, super short term and rock solid secure, the magic formula? It's because together, they basically eliminate the two big fears that make you prefer cash in the first place. And here's the key. Absolute security gets rid of counterparty risk. That's just the fear that the other guy won't pay you back. And being extremely short-term gets rid of interest rate risk. That's the danger that if interest rates in the market go up, the value of your fixed-rate promise will go down. If you can get your money back tomorrow, who cares what interest rates do next week?
And this is the punchline. When you finally engineer a promise that has the same risk, the same timing, and the same flexibility as money itself, well, then people treat it like it is money. All those premiums that made you prefer holding cash just evaporate, and the promise becomes a perfect clone.
Which leaves us with one last and maybe the most fascinating question of all. We've got the recipe, make it short-term and make it zero risk. But in a world that is anything but certain, how is it even possible to create a financial asset that people see as having absolutely positively no risk at all? The answer to that question, well, that's the foundation of our entire modern banking system.